Ron is the Executive Director of the SPCA Alliance in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's an executive committee member of the North Carolina Task Force to Abolish Animal Fighting, and is a steering committee member of a new coalition to bring animal welfare organizations together in North Carolina. Mr. Simmons was a Dangerous Dog Task Force officer and supervisor of the Cruelty Investigations Unit and enforcement supervisor for animal control. Please welcome Ron Simmons.
My mother was a judge, and my sister is an AKC. She's a delegate, and I don't know how, with the background that we have, that I ended up on this side of animal control, or this side of the animal welfare business, or the animal business at all. Animal control is really, in my opinion, just a very, very misunderstood organization. With hearing some of the comments around the table today and yesterday, and you know, as I traveled across the country, I've gone to seminars where you come sit at a table like this, and somebody will ask where you're at, and you tell them, you know, you're from animal control, and they get up from the table and leave. So, but we can be your ally. We really can. So it's just a matter of how you're going to do things. I'm going to try to bring three things in favor here today, and you're going to see that I come from a different world than you guys come from. Okay, it's kind of hard to come after you know, Dr. Beaver and Dr. Gloucester. That, you know, I don't have any doctors or anything after my name, but I have the street after my name, and 20 years of investigative experience after my name. And I think that you're going to see a few things here. It's ironic that from a different standpoint, I agree with most everything that's going on here, but I just look at it differently. I view it differently because I come from a different background. My sister and I did a bite study. She has 2 master's degrees, worked with public health. I think one of the tragedies of things that has happened is that CDC stopped doing bite stuff. We need to have it. It's so important. Data is so important. I'm going to say that, and the gentleman over here was talking about data. That's one of the ways that we have started to overcome the problem of pet overpopulation, is because we're asking people to give data. My organization, the SPCA Alliance, we just were recognized nationally for our spay-neuter voucher program that we have. It's a targeted, what we call a targeted spay-neuter program. It's not mandatory. I'm along with Dr. Beaver, where I don't necessarily think that mandatory is a bad thing if it's implied the right way. I understand how that can be a scary thing, though, but this is a bite. I want to clarify here, we did a bite study in Charlotte, North Carolina. The data is 12 years old. It is not reflective of the United States. It's not reflective of North Carolina. It's reflective of Charlotte, North Carolina for this 1 year. And the reason I say that is because the way that we did this study, I'd love to have the money to do some more, because if we could do the same study, I think we'd come up with some interesting data. As you can see, 38% of the dogs that bit were running at large, okay? And incidence of 5.6% of the 609 incidents were located, was indicated. So and dogs in the category of with the owner on property in the house, this is all reflective of what Dr. Beaver said, 52.6%, okay? And I agree totally with the fact that most people are bitten by a dog that they know, okay? We broke this down into 2 locations, and I think what is really astounding to this is that everybody looks and says that training the dog is a bad thing. You know, from a humane standpoint, maybe it is, but I'm talking specifically about bites right now, okay? As you can see in this study, chained, tethered on the property, 11%, in a fenced yard, 11.7%, not much difference from a bite standpoint, not from a humane standpoint, but from a bite standpoint, okay? And this is in Charlotte, 1 year, okay? It might not be reflective of the whole country, but it is accurate data. And you can see that the rest of this, in the house, leashed, restrained by the owner, and this was off the property, okay? On a leash was only 5.6%. And with the owner on the property, 16.9, running at large was 30%, and unowned, which means that it was a stray dog that we could never find an owner for, okay? was 7.4%. And here again, the average age of all the victims was 25 and 14 years of age, which is reflective of the national data. As you can see, that the 6 to 9-year-old groups and the numbers were 3 times greater than what would be expected by the number of bites was proportional to the population and age groups. And we did in this data, and as you'll hear anybody talk about data, it can, not that it's flawed, but it sometimes depends how you interpret it, and sometimes it's what you base your data on. And some of this, the dog bite data and related to population is based on what the AKC had registered, which again might not be reflective of what is in the population. But just so long as we can explain our data and how it was used, then I feel it's appropriate. When we're talking about pit bulls, this is probably what you all are most of the time used to seeing. I'm going to show you some graphic pictures here in a few minutes. Okay. Part of this is bad rap. I think somebody mentioned bad rap the other day. Bad rap has a very, very good success rate with their dogs, but they will again tell you that they are also, one of the reasons they are successful is because they don't take every dog. They are very selective in the dogs that they take, and they will also tell you that any dog that has been fought should be put down. But these are all the nice big images that we see. Here again, this is a training class, obedience class. And you can see there's probably 30 or 40 dogs there. I don't see too many of those pit bulls going after another pit bull. Here's the problem. This is in Charlotte, North Carolina. It's when these dogs are running loose. Let me catch up here with myself for a second. I apologize because I can't remember his name. But he's a sergeant in Wilmington, North Carolina. What happened here and what you cannot see is that about 6 feet behind these 2 dogs is a school bus and children getting on the school bus. In my business of animal control, usually when the police department calls us, they're in the car with the window down about that much and they say, "Dog's over there, dog's over there." They won't even get out. So brave man, he got out of his car because the kids were there, and you can see here, his mace was expended, okay? He dropped that, and you can see here, he's got his gun out, but I don't even know why, because he couldn't shoot because all the kids were standing around. There's no way he could have shot. He was not bitten, and this is, even with this picture right here, I'm going to tell you, if you knew anything about pit bulls, that the end of the result of what happened is that he was able to get up. He yelled and screamed at the dogs, which is a very good thing. They backed away from him. Of course, more police officers came. Dogs chased a couple of them in the back of the pickup truck, and one of the dogs ended up in the back of the pickup truck with them. So then animal control showed up, and they chased him into a backyard. And unfortunately, because they charged, and that's what they're doing here, if they wanted this man, he would have been had, okay, if they really wanted him. And they ended up shooting the dogs, which, it's in one way it's a tragedy. But this is what neighbors in this community live with. And that's what you need to understand. It's a different world. It's not the world of the slide before, where you've got 30 pit bulls that are in an obedience class together. This is the world, this is the neighborhood that these people live in. This is what they have to put up with on a daily basis. When I do dogfight investigations, I generally start telling people that I'm going to ultimately make somebody in the class mad, because most of them feel like they're probably real good investigators, and they're not. Dogfighting is outlawed in all the states. It's in most states now. It's a felony, and not to be negative towards my fellow animal control people, but animal control really doesn't have the resources to investigate this level here, the level of dogfighting. Dogfighting is in epidemic proportions across the United States. There's big money in it. These are the conditions that they're normally kept in. I'm sure none of you would keep your animals in these conditions, but this is the world that, as I say, the world that I live in. Completely different world, I think, than what most of you are used to seeing. It's across the United States. It's across the world. Dogs from North Carolina, South Carolina, we have traced all the way over to England and Ireland. They just had a big bust over there. There again, Great Britain has a ban on pit bulls. One of the largest busts in world history was just over there. We're going to get so much information from them that we're really going to be able to make a dent even back here in the United States as to things that are going on. Here again, just more of the conditions that they live in. Tethering, these dogs are better off on a chain. They can chew through fences. In a lot of cases like this one, you'll see where they have a chain and a fence. You see the big logging chains that they're on? They're there for a reason. These dogs can pull 60 to 90 times their weight. They train them pulling Volkswagens and small cars for weight pulls. Okay? 60 to 90 times their weight. You calculate what a 60-pound pit bull can pull. And then calculate the safety factor, which is where we come in, of when that dog is lunging and hits the end of that chain, how much PSI is pounds per square inch is on the end of that chain. I mean, I've seen them, not only break the chain because the chain is worn, but I've also seen them pull right through the D-ring, right through the collar, because the collar's 6 to 8 months old out in the weather, especially a leather collar. It's going to break. But they, for the most part, especially when you talk about dog fighting, you have street, amateur, and professional, and it's the street thugs. I heard some people try to be nice about it, yesterday, but they're thugs. Just last week in Charlotte, I'm in code enforcement for the city of Charlotte now. I left animal control about 3 years ago, and I'm driving down the street, and here's a guy taking his pit bull and tied it up at the bus stop, and the dog's lunging at people, and they had to move from the bus stop. The bus actually had to move, down to pick people up. Well, I don't have any authority, but they don't know that. So, I mean, I did drive over and ask him if he wanted his dog, because he was going to tie it up and go into the store, so he changed his mind. But these people are street thugs. It's really all they are. It's becoming very popular. This is blood on the floor of an abandoned house. It's becoming very popular now to fight in abandoned houses, especially on the street level and on the amateur level even. They'll find abandoned houses and fight right inside of there. It's for what they do. No, I'm not condoning anything. Don't misunderstand my words. I mean, it's almost a perfect area to fight in. It's vacant. They don't have to build anything. The ring is already set up. You can see the cabinets are basically are the pit, the actual ring that they would fight in. And although that might look like a lot of blood, it's really not a lot of blood. They actually dehydrate the dogs. There's several methods of doing that. Of course, the primary way to dehydrate the dogs is not to give them water. And they also use, believe it or not, kale. Yes, what we eat, kale. Kale gives them the runs, and they dehydrate. Because there's not much blood, there's not much noise. We've had people busted, especially in New York City, on the third floor of apartments, and the people downstairs just thought that they were dancing upstairs. They just turned up the music. The dogs don't make much noise when they're fighting. Verbal noise. Now, thumping on the floor and everything, yes, but not much growling, not much barking going on, and really not a lot of blood loss. You take a little glass of blood and throw it out on the floor. It looks like somebody died, but it's not that much. Here again, daily. This is what we see in animal control. That dog was on the property of some people that were fighting, yes. I will tell you that I impounded a dog from a man named Ronnie Truesdale. The dog was fought while it was pregnant, okay? fought while I was pregnant. Yes, these are, and Ronnie Truesdale, I wish I could have caught him doing some of the stuff that he did. We would, all the time, I mean, you know, we knew where to look on some of these things, but he was famous for stealing neighborhood dogs. Actually, he didn't. He had the other little street urchins, you know, 8, 10, 12, 14 years old, stealing the dogs. He's giving them $25, $50 a dog. They're stealing maybe 8 or 10 dogs a week. You know, they're making a pretty good living at 8, 10, 12 years old, $100, $200 extra a week. And then he lets his dogs chew on the other dogs. And one of the things that he would do is duct tape their mouth sometimes, or a combination of this three. Duct tape their mouth, duct tape their front legs, duct tape their back legs. Okay? Sometimes all three, sometimes just one, just depending on how he felt that day. And then he would let his pit bulls chew on them. And that's what we call bloodying the dogs. Okay? Like I say, a little bit different world. I mean, we have injuries that well, I'll show you, you're going to see one here in a little bit. This is common. This is common. Until I got into this business, I never knew what a skinny horse looked like or a skinny dog looked like. Okay, I didn't even know that they existed. I mean, you know, we just didn't treat our animals that way. You know? But this is what we get. This is about an 8-month-old puppy, and they do what they call a bump and a roll, or bloody the dog. And you can see all the scarring on the front. I can tell you that this dog, they're called game dogs. I didn't explain that. In their terminology, they're called game dogs. And game means that they will keep on fighting. I've got videotapes out of Taiwan where it's legal to fight the dogs, where after about an hour and a half of fighting, there's a female dog. Oh yeah, these fights go on for a long time, okay? It's not 10, 15 minutes. They go on sometimes for hours. I can't give you an average, but you know, 45 minutes to an hour would not be uncommon at all. And this dog would probably have been real good in the ring. Oh, let me back up. I'm sorry, I cut myself off. Female dog in Taiwan, when they separated the dogs and put them back in neutral corners, she was so game, she had 2 broken front legs, and she was scooching herself across the ring to get out to the other dog. So these dogs have a high drive for what they're doing. I can tell you that this dog would have been pretty good because evidently he didn't give up, and there's no wounds to the backside. All the wounds you're going to see on fighting dogs are through the muzzle, chest area, and legs. If you see any back here, they're what they call curs, and they're not going to last long. Same thing here. Again, all the wounds to the front torso area. You don't see any really wounds to the back. Doesn't look very happy either, does it? There's an adult male. Do see one wound back here. Don't know what that's caused from, but you can see all the lacerations. Again, you know, I keep saying that this is the world that we live in. I don't know how many people are having or don't think that they don't have a problem, but if you live in a bigger city, you've got this problem. This problem comes with gangs. It's money motivated. These guys will go and do a drug deal, and in their terminology, being strapped means you're carrying a gun, okay? And they'll do a drug deal, and they'll be carrying one gun. They'll be strapped once. They go to a dog fight, and they'll have 2 or 3 guns on them, okay? Not a really fun thing to be around. Not real nice people. Most people who are dog fighting have a prior felony arrest, not necessarily conviction, but prior felony arrest, 7 out of 10. And you know, when I talk about pit bulls, and here's where some of the controversy comes in, you know, the owner has to do with the dog and their character. But when you're to me, and I'm not just talking pit bulls, maybe we can relate this to all breeds, but these dogs are no different. I'm going to try to explain it to you. As I say, it's not in the blood necessarily, it's in the bloodline, okay? I just did a class out in Denver, teaching, as I say, dogfight investigations out there in Denver, and was with a lady who's got a pit bull that she got out of a backyard and ended up being hers. You won't find that I use the word rescue too much. I was down at Katrina. We rescued animals down there. I've been in burning cars and pulled dogs out. I've climbed 3 stories to get a dog off of a balcony that was on fire. Those are rescues. And that's just an animal control attitude, but the dogs that are closer to a fighting bloodline are the ones that we really have to worry about, and there's thousands upon thousands upon thousands of them out there. It's no different than my sister. She does search and rescue work. She's got Spaniel, and I mean the dog works pretty good, but it's from more of a confirmation bloodline, and she just went out and got one from more of a field trial bloodline because it's going to do better doing the search and rescue work. So along those lines, it's the same thing. The closer you get to a fighting bloodline, the worse these dogs are going to be. And yes, does the owner play a role in that? Absolutely. But to me, it's more of the bloodline of the dog. Controversial maybe, but that's my real world version of it. You will not see this in too many people's yards. This is called a jenny or a cat mill, and I'll explain it to you for just a second. But what they do. Oh, and by the way, in court, this gentleman said that he put that up 2 hours before we got there. 2 hours before we got there.
Maybe have a party.
Yeah, I guess. What they do is they put a weight on one end. I mean, it can be anywhere. And on the other end, you can see both ends really, but on the other end, you can kind of, I didn't bring my laser with me, but you can see a chain hanging down there. They will, in any form or fashion, I'm just going to give it to you like this. The dog, and you'll see it. Did I put the other slide in there? It's maybe in my investigative files, but they will put some type of either a dog, another dog. Usually it's going to be a cat, a rabbit. They use roadkill. I mean, when you're missing a lot of cats in your neighborhood, I always go around and see who the dog fighter is. Okay, because they use a lot of them. The only case I've ever lost was because the mother turned her son in because she was not because he was fighting the dogs, but because he was taking the neighborhood cats and letting the dogs kill them. That's why she turned him in. And I wouldn't use her in court against her son. It's the only case that I've lost. But they just go around like a hot walker for a horse, and they can do that for hours and hours and hours and hours, just same as on a treadmill. Now, what people are doing now, and I'm not going to name some names, but there's some people who have written some books, mainly in defense of not having breed-specific laws. And the fighters and everybody are, I don't know, man, it's like everybody's combined together. But you did not ever see, up until about 4 or 5 years ago, a cat mill or a jenny in anybody's yard but a fighter's. And now, because we're taking so many people to court for this, other people are starting to use this. Now, treadmills, I mean, a lot of people use treadmills. It's not indicative of dogfighting just because you have a treadmill there. But this was a clear sign to me when I was doing investigations, which was up to 3 years ago, that somebody was fighting. Not necessarily so now, but you have to take in, one second, you have to take in all the factors when you're doing that. I have to follow the facts doing an investigation. And, especially when you have dogs that are bloody, which this guy here was a real idiot because I was giving him 24 hours to vet his dogs. He had some that were chewed up that needed some vet attention. I was giving him 24 hours, and on the way out, just that investigative, intuitive feeling that some of us can get, he had a shed there, and I said, "What's in the shed? You got any more dogs in the shed?" He said, "No, take a look." Well, there was the pit they were fighting them in, So it immediately went from vetting your dogs for 24 hours to him going to jail and me impounding all the dogs. So, it's one of those deals. This is a treadmill. You can't see it very well, but it's a treadmill, and the good thing, well, the thing here is that you can see is where they would actually, again, put animals in the cage up here. If you look over to the left upper corner, you can see that that's the street up there. It's the neighbor's backyard there. Kind of hid it behind that junk car there for a little while. But there's a chain, I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a chain going up here like that, and that's what there's several ways they hook the dogs up to the treadmills. They'll run them for hours, which, I'm not saying that's a bad thing. And he was putting live animals in here, so, what do you think that's just kind of scaring that animal a little bit, you think, maybe? This is what's called a flirt pole, and this is what this is one of the things that upsets me about pit bulls, and this is not, you can't see any scars on this pit bull at all. So not necessarily this particular dog, but also remember that the dog fighters use these flirt poles too. And I heard somebody say a little while ago, it's a big thing in California now, what they're doing is letting these dogs hang. And I don't mean hang like, in the Old West days where we hung people for murdering somebody, but they will bite and grab on, and they will have a contest to see how long the dog can hang there. Some of these dogs, you would be surprised. They'll hang there 45 minutes, an hour or more, when they're conditioned properly. And, there again, big money is bet on that. Now, here's the thing. We've talked about bites. We've talked about 14 and under and all this kind of stuff. I will say that from an animal control standpoint, Bo was talking about how, that he wanted to talk to people in the emergency room when things came and that there wasn't any follow-up. There is follow-up. Animal control does the follow-up. We're the ones going out there. I can't tell you how many times I knock on a door, a week, 2 weeks after a bite has happened. Sometimes it's hours after a bite has happened. And I hear a dog, maybe not the dog that bit, but I hear a dog barking, and I'll either put my foot up against the storm door or hold the door so they can't get it open. And they'll say, let go of the door. I said, put the dog up. Oh, let go of the door. Put the dog up. He won't bite. I've got a bite report in my hand. What do you mean he won't bite? I've got a bite report in my hand. One thing that I will say about bites that I think is kind of overlooked is that, in my opinion, and understand that for years, that's all I did was bite investigations. Along with this, it was all part of the Dangerous Dog Task Force. And we'll talk about that in a second. But a lot of bites, from the dog's point of view, it's a corrective bite. Most of you in here have had a litter or two of puppies. Have you ever had a mom weaning her dog, her puppies, and she grabs them, and it just sounds so terrible. You think she's killing it. Yeah, you pick that puppy up and it's got some slobber on it. And that's it. When they do that same type of bite to us, because our skin is resilient, it turns into a bite. And then when you look at that here again, some of this is argumentative, but I personally don't think that dogs in general look at kids 14 and under as human beings. Okay? I don't know what they look at them as because we can't ask them.
Pack-mates.
Huh?
Pack-mates.
Maybe a pack mate. I don't know, but I do think that they look at them at least as another animal that's not on their same level. Okay? And maybe you all can tell me, and I bring this up, maybe I'm in a good spot to ask this question because it's something that I use. I don't see very many kids in an AKC show ring unless it's a junior type show. How many 13, 14, 15-year-olds are at the Westminster? I mean, it's all adults. I don't think that... Huh? Really? Are there? Okay. All right. Well, then maybe not a very good analogy, but dogs in general just don't respect kids as they do adults. Let's just put it in that way. And then, on the opposite end of things, I think that's where the prey drive comes in. When you start, when you're older, when you're like me now, you hit your 50s, your 60s, your 70s, you start walking a little bit different. I think that's why, some of the older people get attacked too. But kids 14 and under, that's why they get bit. And bringing it back to this, when you've got a dog like two dogs like you saw with the sergeant, I think his name was Gerald Williams, and then you're training a dog to go after something that's flashy like this. So now when the kid starts running, you've got a coat that's moving, and the dog has really been pre-trained to go ahead and attack that. Okay, it comes into a bad situation. American Humane. I know you don't like to hear this word. HSUS. They all have good, decent programs. I like AHA's a little bit better. I would go into schools and do bite prevention programs. We do the stop and drop type deal. I have to talk to kids differently than I do adults because dogs treat kids differently than adults. I think that the one thing that needs to be really looked at when it comes to bites and kids is the fact that kids do two things wrong and parents let them do it wrong, and that's go up and hug a dog. Most of them are looking the dog in the eye, which is a direct challenge. In my opinion, the dog only has two choices when you stare him in the eyes. Yes, you're going to be the dominant person, or no, you're not. And if he chooses no, somebody's had a bad day, okay? And then what do? So the dog says, okay, I'll let you be the boss right now. And then they give that hug. And they're pressing down on the shoulder blades, which is another sign that you want to dominate. And then the dog says, oh no. And their face is right there. This is the dog that was fought when she was pregnant. You can see a lot of ear wounds here. This is what we call a degloving injury, where the whole skin that's around the jaw just has been pulled off. Okay, it's still just hanging there. You can see all the swelling in this dog here, multiple bites. It's a world that's out there that most people don't know about, and it's not something that just happens every once in a while. The police now, and that's one of the reasons that I'm working with police departments on this, is that there's other crimes associated with drugs, illegal weapons. There's just all kind of other crimes, prostitution, all kinds of other crimes that are involved in this. These are the wounds from a pit bull. Missing a lip there. Both of those are facial injuries to a child. The solution is dangerous dog laws. In Charlotte, we've done a very good job right now. I guess I want to say 3 months ago we had a death, a fatality, and maybe that was 6 months ago. And in the past 2 months, we've done 2 dog fighting raids in Charlotte. And right now, the director there has a zero tolerance for dangerous dogs. We could impose, when I was on the Dangerous Dog Task Force, we could impose sanctions against you, and this might scare some of you, but we could impose sanctions against you based on your dog's character and how it was acting, and if it was close to a daycare, if it was close to a bus stop, whether that's a school bus stop or whether that's a regular bus stop, we can impose sanctions, and most of the time that's going to be on the restraint measures, how your dog has to be restrained. Dangerous means any animals whose behavior, temperament, size, or any combination thereof when considered on the totality of the circumstances, not just maybe one thing, the totality of the circumstances, including the nature of the surrounding area, which I was telling you about, bus stops and things like that, constitutes a reasonable risk of injuring a human or an animal, damaging personal or real property. That behavior includes, but is not limited to, the animal's biting or attacking or attempting to attack a human or another animal. However, this definition should not apply to an animal that has been subject to provocation or if the victim has been trespassing as defined in this section upon the animal owner's premise. Now, trespassing does not mean that some kid was chasing his ball into that yard and got attacked. Okay? Protective measures, nature of the particular animal really is the behavior, size, temperament, breed, capacity for inflicting serious injury, number of animals or other such similar factors that would be relevant to the determination of whether preventative measures are needed to be imposed. I know some of this is scary. I, like Dr. Beaver, this word serious injury. What's serious injury? If you're going to go by stitches, because I'm sure that those 2 pictures that I just showed you, and that one girl's ear, 60, 70, 80 stitches, what would you think, Doc? Okay. I can show you more severe bites with probably 8 or 10 stitches, because you're doing plastic surgery. So no, you can't go by stitches. It's more, did it require hospital? Was there an overnight stay at the hospital? This is what we're considering, when we in Charlotte are looking at serious. We could do protective measures, as I said. This is the end result. Okay, this is the end result. And the main point that I want to get to you on, I got to get off the stage here. Main point that I want to get is that when we're talking breed-specific laws, there are people who are for breed-specific laws. There are people who are against breed-specific laws. And I see those 2 groups standing in the middle as I am. I see those 2 groups spending so much time arguing with each other and not focusing on the solution. And I'm giving you one solution here. Maybe it's not the best one. Maybe it's not the only one. But this dangerous dog laws and having the ability to enforce them puts it back on the owner. Okay? It puts everything back onto the owner and not necessarily the dog, because there are good dogs in every breed out there. Two of the worst dogs I had were, I owned a golden retriever for 14 years. Two of the worst dogs I had were golden retrievers. They were bad, but so it brings it back onto the individual owner. Okay? Thank you guys. You're great.